our muscles to start to sink into Mother Earth. They're spreading like butter on warm toast. Relaxed and receiving. Those are some of the words of restorative yoga. It's always asking ourselves, how can I relax even more into whatever shape it is? And how can I receive and open up to beautiful levels of being with the body? Our breath is flowing. And the idea that we're opening up ourselves to today is vulnerability. Today, our vulnerability is all about asking ourselves, what is it that I am hiding from, especially from those that I love the most? What am I not willing to share? In what ways am I playing small around those people? And we ask these important questions because as we start to open up, it naturally will give others that permission to open up as well. We all go through hard times in this life, and sometimes we feel like we should be embarrassed about some of the natural things that come up. Getting an infection. There's a person I know who got a staph infection in her leg. And so now she's a little bit embarrassed of her scars. But it's such a natural thing. And it's over with now. There's nothing she can do about it. And so there's no reason for her to think that she's less human because of something silly like that. And so in a way, eventually there comes this moment where we can ask ourselves, am I going to hide forever, or am I willing to open myself up to be a little bit more vulnerable? And so that's the question that we'll leave in the back of our minds. In what ways am I hiding? In what ways can I be more vulnerable, especially to those that I love the most? And so with that to help lead us on, let's begin our class today, taking the knees gently into the chest. As we take the knees inward, let yourself start to rock for a few moments, letting hips and sacrum receive the blessing of being here. Checking in with them. Sometimes just by rocking like this, I'm able to restore my sacrum that may have tilted a little bit. I'm able to rock it right back into its neutral, beautiful alignment. That's the place where there's no pain in that low back. So maybe one more little circle. And then from here, let's begin to open the arms and bring both knees into a nice little twist over to the left. We're asking our spine how much it is willing to relax into the shape. It's not about forcing anything. Some days, even touching the ground would be a little bit too far. So find that position that's perfect. It gets deep into the hips, into some of those vulnerable spots where we might hold deep emotions, unprocessed emotions from times when we didn't know what to do with what life threw at us. Breathe into the opening, and then continue to expand your awareness. Notice what it feels like through the rest of the legs. And up the spine. And into the shoulder, even into the head. How is the body receiving this pose? Sometimes opening ourselves up to what our body is actually experiencing can be very vulnerable. One way that people may react to trauma is to hide in their shell. It's It's like detaching from their bodies. So let's be vulnerable to our body in this moment and be absolutely 100% aware of all these sensations that are going on. Let's take another breath, maybe the deepest one that we've taken this whole pose. And as the exhale starts to flow, gently, gently return your hips to the ground. The knees start to come back up. And with just as much care as the first side, begin to take the knees to the second. What's the first thing that you notice on this side? What's that obvious part? If somebody says, oh, what does that stretch do? You would point exactly to that area of the body. Be aware of that first thing. And keep breathing. And as we continue to enjoy the release in this pose, we continue to ask ourselves, okay, maybe our first initial deep thing is starting to subside, so where does the energy continue to flow? Scanning through the body, being present with all the sensations going on. Even letting ourselves list everything that we're feeling as its own type of meditation. I'm feeling coolness on my skin here. I'm feeling that my breath affects this area. I'm feeling the deepest release there. And just letting this type of presence with our body be our meditation here. Let another deep breath flow through the lungs. How deep can they expand here? And as you feel the release of that breath, let that release help you return your hips to the ground. When the feet are planted, let the knees do a few gentle windshield wipers left and right. It's almost like we're rocking a baby out. Being so gentle, so tender with these hips, with all these muscles that are starting to open up. And maybe one more time to each side. And whenever that feels complete for you, we'll leave this left foot planted and the right knee will cross tightly over the left knee. Once we've got the knee cross going on, invite the thighs to come closer to the chest. And you'll notice that each foot flings off to each side. So see if it's possible for you to reach each hand for the ankle that's off to that side. And then relax the head back down if it lifted. Sometimes that's not possible. So you'll grab closer to the knees. Nothing wrong with that at all. That's where the body may be. But continue to invite the legs as deep as they wish to go. It's not about forcing ourselves deeper. but it's those restorative qualities of openness and release. So find the place where you feel something in your body and then begin to release into that shape. Sometimes that release is more of an energetic quality than anything else. Let your breath flow into the pose. Let your body receive. Especially if it feels like your hands are doing a little bit of work to bring the legs in, make sure the shoulders are still very relaxed here. We're not adding tension in one area of the body just to release it from another area. Take another breath. And then as you start to release hands, that left foot returns to the ground. The right knee stays in the cross. And from here, almost like an eagle's pose on our back, we take the right elbow under the left elbow, and we begin to find eagle's arms. The full eagle's arms would be if we can wrap the palms all the way around to touch. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes that's too much. If it's too much, see if it's comfortable to have backs of palms together, or simply walk the hands toward your shoulder blades as if you're giving yourself a huge hug. So whatever we're doing, once we're set up in our position, we start to open up into the stretch that this can bring into our shoulders. So if we have the full eagle's wrap, my favorite thing to do is start to invite the fingertips to touch the ground right above the head. When they've found whatever deepness they can release into, and then try to push my shoulders away from the ears downward. In doing that, the shoulders begin to open in such a deep expression. So keep on exploring until you feel that stretch through the tops of the shoulders. And then try to just breathe and release into it. And realize the vulnerability of this shape. Imagine that if you needed to view all around you in order to protect yourself, you're blocking off a huge portion of your vision by keeping your arms right in front of your face. So just be with that kind of vulnerability. The vulnerability of not being able to see as well. Another breath here. And then as the arms begin to open up, spreading wide to each side, feel that release through the arms. Pull up our hips an inch or so to the right, and then let the knees fall back into a twist, but with the knee crossed like this. And notice the extra depth available in this twist, especially compared to the first. Notice the vulnerability of this shape. It's almost like somebody's tied our shoelaces together. And so if we had to get up and run, we'd kind of trip ourselves right away. So this is a very vulnerable shape. There's no escape. And so it's an invitation to release ever deeper, right into where we are. yourself explore another deep inhale. That beautiful exhale. Inviting the hips to return, recenter them on the mat. And before we head into the second side, let the legs float up to the sky. And then open up nice and wide. Hands come to the inner thighs. Just to hold in this nice wide leg stretch. Be with this shape. Remember, we're not being too forceful. It's not supposed to be about too much work. So if you need to bend the knees and make it more like a frog pose on its back, that's perfectly fine. If straight legs feels good, to stretch through hamstrings as well, keep it. We've got just a few more breaths to relax here. So just enjoy another good inhale. And with the exhale, bending the knees, send the feet back to the ground. Heading to the second side, we need to take the left thigh over the right. So once we're there, thighs come into the chest. And we grab onto each ankle that's off to each side. And start breathing into this stretch. If there's space to continue pulling the legs deeper, see what that may open up for you. Are there very deep, vulnerable emotions that are coming up from the hips that makes us always avoid the hip openers? If so, can we be present and vulnerable with it, at least for a couple of breaths? Keep the shoulders relaxed. Another wonderful inhale. Exhale, release the hands. We're setting the right foot back down, leaving the legs in this cross. Now we take the eagle's arms with left elbow under. Remember again, you can play with the exact arrangement of this. Keep on playing around until the tops of your shoulders or even the outer parts of your shoulders are opening up for you. So again, for me to get into it, I need to let my fingers try to rise up above my head, trying to touch the ground. And then I press my shoulders away from the ears. Our belly breath is still going. Listen for that moment when you do experience a release in the shoulders. Keep on waiting for that moment. When it does come for you, Then I invite you to open the arms up, spreading them on the ground into that wonderful release. Whenever you find this shape, and there's no rush to get there, we've got so much time, only then you'll start to head into the second side twist by bumping hips to left, knees falling to right. And notice if there was any sort of peer pressure to release out of that sooner than your body really wanted. Realizing that peer pressure is another way to start to play with vulnerability. Am I doing this just because I'm told? Or is this the way to deepest release? There's a deeper knowing. Your body knows. So we're trying to uncover levels and gain experience until we get to that point where our body just knows. And we listen to it, and it can tell us exactly what it wants. So open up to any type of vulnerability that's making its presence here. Is there another layer of release in the breath? We'll be here for 2 more cycles. Notice what happens with the exhale in this pose. That sinking into gravity, the release just slightly deeper. And when you've completed that second round, we can uncross the knees, bring the hips back to the earth, recentering them on the mat. And once again, let the legs stretch up and expand wide. Hands help to weigh the inner thighs down. If ever the bend of the knees is preferable to straightening of the legs, that's absolutely welcome. Are there new layers here that weren't present the first time? And then purposely let yourself bend the knees. We're going to slide the hands further down the shins, maybe to the ankle. Sometimes people can reach for outside edges of feet, heading into a little while with happy baby, whatever this looks like. And make sure you're not forcing anything. If the hips want to relax down, let them. Today though, if the hips want to lift, maybe play with that. Maybe rocking is the best thing you can do for your body, or other simple movements, or maybe it's stillness. Simply be with your body, asking it constantly, what can I do for you? What would be the greatest gift, the greatest release that's available here? And try to find that pose. So here, take another deep belly breath. And then as the exhale releases, we send our legs long to the ground. Open up the arms and the legs for a moment with Shavasana. And notice this journey that the body's already been on, even this little bit of time that we've shared together. Good things have opened up all around the body, from the legs up the hips, up the spine, into the shoulders. So now let's give the neck a little stretch. We're going to thread our hands together behind the back of our head, and then use that clasp to help lift up the head. We don't want to be too effortful, but find a way that we can stretch through the back side of the neck. And once again, we're asking ourselves, is stillness best for these muscle groups right now? Or is movement better? Gently rocking the head just a little bit to the left and just a little bit to the right. Let's find 3 more breaths of release, whatever that looks like for this shape. When your third breath completes, be so gentle setting the head back down. It's like we're putting a baby down into its bed, trying to not wake it up. Once we've released the head back down, stretch the arms up overhead. Notice how the low back arches very gently. So take a good breath into that arch. And then we'll start to head into the shape of a banana. We'll start with our legs. The right ankle crosses over the left ankle. And begin to scoot both legs off the mat to that left side. Up above our head, grab onto the right wrist. And then scoot the shoulders and the head off that top left edge of the mat. So it's a big banana shape, everything leaning over to left side. Make sure neither hip nor shoulder lifted. And feel how you have control over this. It's very vulnerable to expose our side ribs, to expose that part of the heart to friends, to family, to any danger. It's vulnerable, so be with that. And notice that you can be passive in the vulnerability, just releasing into the shape, or you can be active in the vulnerability, pushing against the clasp of wrist and ankle. So find the best banana shape that you can. And take a few more deep breaths, noticing how another aspect of vulnerability here is that you can't breathe quite as deeply. So find the lobes of the lungs that still will expand for you here. Another deep inhale. And exhale, release your way back up onto the mat with the arms up overhead. With that slight arch to the low back, take another deep breath. In. And out. Heading to the banana on the second side. Left ankle goes over. Legs go to the right. Hold on to the left wrist, arms go to the right. Find the same quality as before, be it active or passive. And once again, find the areas that you can breathe into. Let that breath go so deep. Take another deep breath in and long, slow release. When you've finished, let yourself continue to roll over into a fetal position on this side. Taking a good breath or two. Before eventually pressing your way up to sit. Roll your shoulders up, back, and down. And feel all that you're experiencing in your body right here. We'll take a moment to loosen up the spine even deeper. We're going to focus on it in increments. First, the upper part of the back, and then the rib cage middle part, and then the lower part. So first for the upper back, let's reach our arms up above head, clasping them together. Release pointer finger and thumb. And what we're going to do, focusing on the upper back, is start tracing the fingers in circles. This is meant to be nice and loosening for that upper back. Keep the shoulders relaxed. Let yourself take a few circles. You can go fast, you can go slow, you can go bigger if you like bigger. I personally love to just keep it small. Maybe eventually here you like to switch the direction of the circle. One more little circle before we drop the hands down to let the shoulders relax. Once you're there, roll the shoulders up, back, and drop them down. Beautiful. Feel that looseness in the upper back. Now to get to the middle, open the arms out to left and to right, floating at shoulder height. And then start to jut your rib cage as far to the right as it can reach, and as far to the left as it can reach. Again, no need to rush, be playful with this. But start to play with that middle back. How much is it able to reach to each direction? Reaching for salt, and for pepper, for other good spices for our life. Perhaps one more time to each side. And then drop the hands down. Roll the shoulders up and back and drop them down. And then leaving the hands resting, we're focusing on the low back. This is going to be circles. Oftentimes when we do circles, people focus more on the upper back and making these huge circles. That's not quite what we're going for. We're focusing on the low back and just keeping it small through that low back. So this may not be a large circle. Think of it more like a belly dancer. And notice what parts are easiest through that low back. So for me, it's very easy to round backwards through the very low part of the back. When I arch forward, the low back doesn't go that much. So just become aware of the ease and the restrictions in your low back. And let's go ahead and reverse the circles, taking a few to the other direction as well. And as this next circle completes, come to stillness with a nice tall spine. And from here, let the fingertips float off to each side, hovering just above the ground. The right ear will begin to drop to the right shoulder. Sometimes it's nice to pause exactly where you're at. Sometimes the right hand likes to come up to rest on the top ear, not to push the head down, but to be an added weight so that gravity does its job very effectively. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're experiencing a good amount of opening on the top of left shoulder. Take another breath into the belly. Slowly out. And as we release, the ear is still down to shoulder. Right hand comes down to the ground to the right. And we continue to melt to that right side, taking a long lean. Sometimes it's nice to start reaching left arm up to the sky, or even reach left arm all the way over. This can be with stillness, or you can rock around on that top shoulder, tracing the fingers backward and forward. Whatever feels good and freeing for shoulder and for side ribs. And one more breath. And let the heaviness of the left arm going to the left help you rise. Head comes upright last. And up at the top, the fingertips float to each side again, and left ear begins to drop down. Find the release that's beginning to happen through this side. Maybe left hand wants to come up to deepen the right shoulder stretch. Let the head continue to lean that way as you free the left hand back down to the ground and continue to melt your shoulders toward that lateral direction. Maybe right arm also comes up and over. No pressure if there's any shoulder issues. Stillness or movement. Find the quality that's best for your body. Eventually let that right hand help you rise. Head comes up very last. Then the right arm comes across the body. Hook around with the left arm. Perhaps left ear drops back down to left shoulder to deepen the stretch here. A huge inhale opens both arms behind us. And with the exhale, left arm crosses over the body. Hug around to the right, maybe right ear drops down. Opening back up with an inhale. And exhale, bottoms of feet come together. This could be cobbler, or it could be further, more like a star pose. You choose the appropriate amount, and if there's space in your body to start leaning forward, find that release. Especially letting the head be heavy. Feel that stretch into the back of the neck. And as the back is heavy, as the head is heavy, it's pulling the spine down. Perhaps you're feeling this clear down low into the back, pulling clear down into those muscles. Keep the shoulders relaxed away from ears. And feel this kind of vulnerability, almost like we've curled up into a little tortoise shell. Our hands find the ground, and they help our spine to have support as we rise back up. From the rise, we pick up the knees, and then begin to let the legs go forward. They can have a little bit of bend, or they can go straight. This is your body's preference. Whatever variation we found, our hands are on the ground, and already start to melt your spine down into a forward fold like little chocolate. So this is more of a nice yin way of approaching it. We're not trying to force any shape to happen. Rather, it's just this melting into the shape. Sometimes if there's a lot of bend in the elbows, it's nice to walk the hands forward a little bit. It's not necessary, only if you like that shape better. Feel what this is bringing up for your body here. One more deep breath right here. And then the hands walk us back up very slowly. When we've risen, have the left hand to scoop the left knee up. We're planting the left foot. Right ankle comes on top of left thigh. And then you just get to do whatever you need to do to experience a right hip opening. So some people just being right here is enough. Some people push the right hand on the right knee. Some people scoot the bottom foot in deeper. Just keep on exploring, keep on playing with it. until you find a deep enough opening for that hip. We won't be here too long, just 3 more delicious breaths. And then that bottom foot, the one that's on the ground, scoots over to the right. This brings us to a shin stack, or if that's making one of our hips lift, just drop it down to cross leg instead. From here, an inhale brings both arms up to the sky, shoulders are so relaxed. And exhale, we twist over our right shoulder. Left hand goes to the right knee, the other hand goes behind. Taking one breath here. Next inhale floats us back up to the sky. Exhale to twist to the second side. One breath here. Inhale to float back up. Drop the hands to the ground in front of you. Begin to play with how deep your hips and your glutes want to release here, perhaps walking your way forward. Support the spine as you walk back in. Releasing the right foot to the ground. Pick up the left ankle to place it on the right thigh. Another chance to be with that left hip. So maybe we're just maybe back. Maybe we're pushing on the knee. Maybe the bottom foot slides closer. Just find the left hip in a good open position. More breath. Then the right foot slides to the left. We drop down to the shin stack or the cross leg sit. Once we're there, an inhale floats the arms up to the sky. Exhale, twist over your left shoulder. Pause for a full breath. Next inhale to float back up. Exhale, open up second side. Pause for a breath. Inhale, float. Drop the hands in front of you. Take that wonderful release one more time. enjoy the last 3 breaths in this wonderful shape. After the last one, we drop the hands down. We walk back in. We begin to find our way down into our Shavasana. You can choose exactly what variation of Shavasana would be perfect for your body today. Some days I keep my feet planted and the knees come into one another. Other days it's more like a cobbler's pose, letting the hips open. Other days it's long legs, stretching super far away from my head. Whatever your Shavasana looks like today, my invitation is to find a way to be vulnerable. So I'll give you a few examples of what that might look like. One example maybe is arms and legs spread a little bit wider than normal. By our arms and legs going away from midline, that can feel a little bit more vulnerable. Another option is to give our mind something that it has to be tasked with so that our thoughts can't go crazy during Shavasana. So this would be the task of slowing it down by naming the parts of our breath as we travel through our Shavasana. For example, inhale, exhale. It can be very vulnerable for the mind not to be thinking about all the crazy things all the time. So whatever type of vulnerability you're willing to explore as we relax in the Shavasana, begin to really deeply release that type of vulnerability. As we're here enjoying the next few minutes we have together. Begin to deepen the inhales and the exhales. Introducing little movements back to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Stretching out like we're waking up first thing in the morning. Eventually rolling over to a nice fetal position on one side. And taking however many breaths it takes for us to feel ready to come up to a seated position. Some of us it'll be 2 or 3, some of us more like 4 or 5. Only rising up when you feel ready. And as we join our hands together in front of our heart, we honor that part of us that thinks that it can be vulnerable. That part of us that thinks that it can get embarrassed. We honor that part of us that thinks that it's possible to fail. That part that even resists vulnerability. And we realize the deepest part of who we are cannot be changed or lessened by anybody else's view of us. Therefore, vulnerability is natural. And so as we travel into the rest of this marvelous day, we look for opportunities, especially around those that we love, to open our heart to just a little bit more vulnerability, letting them see us for who we truly are. And so with vulnerability to lead us on, let's wrap up this wonderful time we got to share together today with the sound of Om. Deep inhale now. Be filled with light and happiness and peace.